Hey everyone, this is Elenbaas from Nightlight Astrology, and today we are going to take a look at all of the major transits of the month of November. This is our monthly overview video, so as you guys know who have been watching the channel for a while, or in case you're new, we take a look at all of the major transits very briefly in this video so that you get a sense of what's coming for the month ahead, and also so that you know which topics I'll be covering in the month of November in my weekly videos. Most of the transits that I look at, I will be dedicating a video, sometimes two videos. So if we have eclipses, even more, but we just passed through eclipse season, so a little less drama this month. But coming off eclipse season, it's important to look at the astrology because a lot of us are carrying the experience of the eclipse portals, you might say, into the month ahead, and we're still working with what came up. So it's good to know how those energies will be sort of evolving over the next month. So anyway, our goal for today is to look at the astrology of November. Hilda's like, I'm going to find a little spot to lay down. Anyway, because that is our goal for today. Before we get into it, don't forget to like and subscribe. Share your comments and reflections as we go along. It really helps the channel to grow when you guys do that. And also it creates really nice community around every topic for the week. You can find a transcript of any of my daily talks on the website, nightlightastrology.com. And we are really, it's coming up now on the start of the new program. If you go to the courses page, click on the first year course, Ancient Astrology for the Modern Mystic begins November 18th. It's coming up and we still have room. So if you would like to sign up, please feel free to do that. You might have seen we had some alumni come on and talk about the program recently. You can go check that out from last week's videos. Scroll through this page to see everything that's included in the course. I have talked about it at length. There are 30 classes on the year. They are all recorded, so if you cannot attend live, you can participate remotely by downloading or watching the recordings on the class website that you have lifetime access to. And this is a class in ancient Hellenistic Greek astrology. We build from the foundation up, and it has a kind of modern archetypal and psychological infusion, you might say, because that's a big part of my practice coming from a background in modern astrology as well. Anyway, if you have any questions about the program, you can email us, info@nightlightastrology.com, and at the bottom of the page, you will find the enrollment options. Early bird payment saves you $500 off. There's a payment plan if you want to spread the payments out over a year, and then there is need-based tuition assistance. If you are someone who'd really like to take the program, but you need a little help to make it happen because you're carrying a lot of debt. We know student debt is, hamstringing a lot of people out there. We have a lot of people who come in just because to take this and pay your student loans is too much. So whatever life situation you're in that's making it a little bit difficult to meet our price point, if you would like some help, tell us your story and use the tuition assistance option. We'd be very glad to work with you. We like to make sure that nobody's priced out of studying something that we believe is sacred and should be available for everyone. So at any rate, I feel like that's my default phrase. At any rate, I'm going to have a quarter jar for every time I say that now. Now you guys are all going to draw my attention to us. See, what did I just do to myself? All right. Anyway, that was good. All right. So let's go to the transits on the screen. I'm going to put them up starting on November 1st, and we're going to work our way through the major transits of the month. Now, I don't look at every last transit under the month of November umbrella. I look at those that I think are a big deal. And so most of the time I leave out very fast moving sextiles, for example, because most of the time they're nothing burgers when it comes to mundane forecasting compared to oppositions, squares, and conjunctions, for example, or slower moving trines between an inner planet and an outer planet or something like that. So anyway, we're going to look starting with November 3rd, and we're going to work our way through the month. And I'll tell you guys just basically what I think about this. And remember that we will be breaking down most of these transits in depth as the month goes on. Okay, so looking first at November 3rd, on that day, we will have the Sun opposing Jupiter. So this is our first major transit of the month. Now, Sun-Jupiter oppositions, when you have an opposition with the benefic, generally speaking, it's pretty good. You'll see, for example, a boost of confidence around this time. You might see a little bit of bravado or arrogance, or I can do anything, or kind of like that little special chosen syndrome. I'm so special. I've been chosen by the gods. The dark side is really the hubris. But otherwise, this is a transit that can make things grow, that has a very fertile, life-giving, abundant quality. It can also be about people who have power or influence that you're getting in contact with. It can also just be about that boost of confidence that you need to do something or to act in a creative and effective manner. So a few thoughts about Sun opposite Jupiter November 3rd. The other thing happening November 3rd is Venus is opposing Neptune. So that's another transit that I generally like. Venus opposite Neptune might be don't drink, spend too much, don't have a one night stand with someone that you'll regret tomorrow. The illusory side of Venus Neptune that can make a beat up car look like a Ferrari. That's problematic with Venus Neptune. The inability to see things clearly, for example, is a hallmark of Venus Neptune, especially around love, beauty, romance, sex, relationships. But on the other side, and to be fair, this is one of the most romantic, sensual, exotic, dreamy combinations of planets that we have. And you should enjoy that when this comes up, there might be a tension between trying to control things and make them look perfect and having to surrender or let go and accept things the way that they are. But Venus opposite Neptune invites us into a space where we can let go and move into a more sensual, exotic, dreamy, imaginative realm. There might be some challenges that come up around Venus Neptune because of the opposition and because of Venus's debility in the sign of Virgo. But I like this, and it's also coming on a day where the sun is opposite Jupiter. The benefics are configured with one another by a whole sign trine, so I feel like this ought to be a pretty good start to the month. The other thing that's nice about the early part of November is that Saturn is turning direct. Now, to me, there's this debate that you'll hear people have about whether it's better to have a malefic retrograde or not. The idea being that if a malefic is retrograde, it has less malefic power, or it has, and by malefic we mean like Marsy stuff that you don't like burning your finger, cutting your hand or something, or getting a fever or getting into a fight with somebody, like all the like nasty Marsy stuff that you might not like tends to be reduced when it's retrograde. There's a theory that goes like that. I've not seen that excuse me, consistently enough to believe that. I don't know. I can't get behind that idea personally. So what I can say in my own experience, just and I reserve the right to change my mind if I'm still growing as an astrologer even after 13 years. But I would say that when Saturn turns direct, you get a more effective Saturn. You get a Saturn that has a little bit more agency, and even for Saturn, that's a good thing. When Saturn's retrograde, there might be a sense of being a little bit helpless to what Saturn is doing in your life. Whereas when Saturn's moving direct, in my experience, the planet then takes on or reflects a sense of agency. And so I think Saturn turning direct is a very good thing. I generally land on that side of the spectrum with planets retrograde in general, that when they turn direct, the retrogrades bring a lot of teachings and they bring a lot of helpful events into our lives. So I'm not trying to say that there isn't a lot to be gained from retrograde periods, but I think that when Saturn turns direct here at the very beginning of Pisces, starts to move forward again, there's a deeper level of work that we're ready for. There's also a shift back into a place of agency after maybe feeling like things were out of our control for a while. That's how I'm choosing to look at this for now anyway, but we'll see how it goes. November 4th, the other thing that's happening in this early part of the month is really packed, is that Mercury will also be opposing, I have it on the 5th right now, I'll just back it up a day. Mercury will also be opposing Uranus. So this, again, if you go from the 3rd through the 4th, just those 2 days, Sun opposite Jupiter, Venus opposite Neptune, Saturn direct, Mercury opposite Uranus. We'll be doing videos on these as the early part of the month unfolds, for sure. Mercury opposite Uranus is, at its worst, it has a very defiant, contentious, belligerent quality to it. Do things my way, think my way, um, or nothing at all. It can be very black and white, and it isn't afraid to burn bridges or to stand out in defiance or opposition against people that it perceives as shallow or ignorant or not doing or being who they're supposed to be according to, you know, whatever idea we're most passionate about. So I think there is the chance here for a kind of mental, combative, defiant quality that could get you in trouble, especially in relationships. So you want to be careful. It's not a good transit, for example, to get into a heated debate with someone at the grocery line. So the chance is that someone in the grocery line, might get hostile, like physically or something. On the other hand, that's because Mars is also close to Mercury, but Mercury opposite Uranus, on the other hand, can be all about original and inventive thinking. Inventiveness as a hallmark of technology, art, culture is a great thing. So for the most part, sometimes there's always a question of progress and what defines actual progress. For example, that debate is going to be raging on as Pluto enters Aquarius and we talk more about AI or whatever. But Mercury opposite Uranus is something that, generally speaking, can help you think outside of the box. And that, in order to do that, there might be more tension or drama surrounding the kind of thinking you're doing or the kind of thinking that you need to do or the ideas that you're coming up with. All right. Moving on, Venus trines Pluto on the 6th. I like this transit because Venus is going through a trine with Pluto, and then on the 8th, Venus enters Libra just 2 days later, where she gets back her dignity from fall to rulership. And that trine to Pluto is happening at those critical final degrees where she makes that transition. So I really like this as a period of time in which something that has been challenging, you might feel like Venusian things, whether that's relationships, love, creativity, art, the body, the sort of sensual dimension that Venus represents, or even other things like sisters or women or friends, all things that Venus rules, may go from somewhat challenging to significantly improved. And you may go through some kind of healing transformation that allows for that improvement right around the time that Venus is trining Pluto. It's interesting that on the 6th, Mercury will also trine or sextile, or Mercury will trine Neptune. So there's something about that little moment here. You can see if I back this up just a touch. Let's go back. Here we go. So here's Mercury trining Neptune, and it's doing so at the same time that Venus is trining Pluto. I feel like this is a moment, because Venus is in a Mercury-ruled sign, where we're looking at things that have been hidden, or we're things that have been hidden are being revealed. We're having maybe some difficult conversations, but in order to transform, we have to go through this deeper emotional moment, a moment of looking at boundaries, of reading signs and messages, of trying to interpret or figure something out, maybe working through some heavier, more unconscious material in relationships. But you do that work, and there's a healing effect. Venus lifts up her dignity. Mercury trine Neptune in water signs is great for emotional healing. So this is just a little period. Now, if you have noticed anything about this month so far, you should notice that this is a lot going on already in the first couple of days of the month. By the 8th day of November, Venus enters Libra, and we've already gone through Sun opposite Jupiter, Venus opposite Neptune, Saturn direct, Mercury opposite Uranus, Venus trine Pluto, and Mercury trine Neptune. Wow, that's a lot in a really short period of time. On the 10th, Mercury will enter Sagittarius and immediately makes a square to Saturn. I would watch for rigidity mentally and philosophically or even religiously right around this time. You've got Mercury and Saturn square, which tends to create some rigid thinking or communicating, a more conservative, contractive, and sometimes even dissociated state. But you've also got fire and water, so it's kind of boiling, and it's in Jupiter ruled signs. I could see this as being a real moment of there's a kind of a dogmatic quality in the air, is what I'm trying to say. So the other thing that Mercury Saturn is good for, though, is serious thinking and having to look at things from the standpoint of our values, our commitments, disciplines. It's about learning, and it's about asking difficult questions and thinking critically. Those are all good qualities. Now, the other reason, though, that I would say be careful around this time of some real sort of dogmatic qualities is that Mars is also, during the exact same time as Mercury separates from Saturn, Mars will be opposing Uranus. This is a very explosive combination that can lead to, whether it's that kind of sudden Mars energy. The sudden Mars energy is erratic, it's somewhat confrontational or explosive, and it's the kind of thing where if people are driving too fast or doing something too risky, they get hurt. It's the kind of thing where people's tempers, people blow up with big like temper tantrums. Well, when you have Mercury square Saturn at the same time, that's why I would say be careful of really dogmatic, rigid, and oppositional energies in the air. People becoming very self-righteous, people becoming very volatile. This is also a time where, you say and think the shocking or provocative stuff, and it could get you in trouble. It might be what is needed too. You never know. On the 13th, we get a new moon in Scorpio. Surprise, surprise. This is Scorpio energy. And it's not a solar eclipse, sorry. This new moon in Scorpio will also feature a almost conjunction with Mars, and all of it is opposite Uranus. It becomes one of the most provocative new moon signatures of the entire year. I highly expect that the energies of the moon cycle starting on November 13th and going, all the way into December will be one of the most transformational of the year, but in a very Uranian way. Shocking, sudden, original, defiant, freedom-seeking, liberating. But with Mars there too, some of that's going to happen in ways that are more confrontational. So it's a very intense new moon signature, and we'll be looking at that in depth. Of course, the sun will be opposite Uranus following the new moon on the 13th. Then on the 17th, Mars will trine Neptune. Now, for Mars, I like this because this to me feels like when Mars is capable of cooling down a bit, and the sun will move right into that trine with Neptune at the same time. So right as at the 17th, you're right around that time, you're getting both sun and Neptune, or sun and Mars trining Neptune. And then on the 18th, you get the Mars Kasimi. And that's a moment of rebirth for Mars. But that also means that everything up until this point later in November is happening from the standpoint of Mars being combust, but protected in its own chariot by virtue of being in its own sign, Scorpio. So you have a Mars that's like kind of under siege this month. There's a lot of Mars energy that it's like very erratic, unstable. It's helpful that it's in a fixed sign and in its own rulership, protected from the combustion, but it's a month of close calls. I'll put it that way. Now, when we get to November 23rd, the latter part of the month, we now have the sun moving into the sign of Sagittarius and immediately making the square to Saturn. The sun square Saturn is hard for, always seems to bring up paternal karma, like dad stuff. But it's also about creativity, destiny, legacy, and the sacrifices, the compensating sacrifices that we're asked to make on behalf of the things we believe in and the things that, that constitute our ambitions in life. Like those desires, goals, dreams, the paths that we're taking toward the things we want to become or the things we want to do with our life. And Saturn says, well, how much are you willing to work? How much are you willing to sacrifice? Or here's a block or a limit or a prohibition that makes it hard to get there. Do you have the staying power? November 24th, Mars will move into Sagittarius. This is where we go from a very Uranian Mars to one that's getting checked a bit by Saturn. On the 25th, Mars will square Saturn. And to me, Mars-Saturn squares are nice on the level of like, an effective structured use of martial energy. So when you think about gathering your resources and it's sort of battle planning. But hopefully that's a metaphor, right, for us. When we say that, we mean I'm going to tackle a project and I have to work with highly effective, I've got my will and my energy, my enthusiasm, but also my resources and the structured, intelligent, mature use of those resources. So that's kind of, I would say, one of the better ways that we could think about Mars and Saturn. But Mars and Saturn coming up will also bring up the potential for that kind of dogmatic quality again. Mars-Saturn is, I'm doing this for your own good. It's that kind of energy. And so you have to be careful of this kind of strict, punitive quality when we become the judge, the jury and the executioner. The 27th, the full moon is in Gemini. And I have to say, with what I think is going to be some fanatical energies in the air this month, I think this full moon in Gemini is inviting us to relax and keep an open mind. I'll say more about the full moon later in the month. It's a little too far off for me to speculate too much about right now, but my sense is that this will be about asking us to keep an open mind and to be playful and curious. November 27th, November 27th, Mercury will then square Neptune. And that Mercury energy from Sag to Neptune can result in like seriously delusional, religious, and philosophical thinking, which is a theme for the month, especially with the Uranian energy in the air. But it's also about and like emotional and spiritual and philosophical coercion. This is what you ought to think, believe. This is how you ought to behave. Everyone ought to be like me. An intolerance for differences, mentally, intellectually, religiously, which can fuel this kind of like delusional thinking. Basically, that's the danger of that transit toward the end of the month, given the context of everything else that's going on in the month. But you also have the potential for there to be a broadening or opening of the mind, and kind of accessing otherworldliness, which is a Mercury-Neptune promise. Let's think about or open our minds to magic and mystery, which I think is the best of Mercury-Neptune. Anyway, this has been a little crash course in the astrology of November. We will be looking at each of these transits individually as we go along. Most of them I'll be doing at least one video on, if not a few for some of them. And we'll see what comes. This will be a very interesting month, especially starting from that new moon in Scorpio onward. Of course, we're coming off eclipse season, so a lot of that's just like coming. It's like waves that have maybe there's not any new waves as big as the eclipses that are coming in, but they're still washing up on the shore, and that energy is very much still with us. So that will make some of these transits hit just a little bit harder. Well, that's it for now. I can't wait to see what this month is like. I'm looking forward to it all. I'm looking forward to the learning and growing that I know it will provide for me and for all of us. I look forward to hearing your stories, and I hope you guys all have a great month of November. Take it easy. Bye.